Hi, I'm Paula. I'm a principal program manager at Microsoft for the PostgreSQL CAT team. Today, I'm going to cover with you the steps and process to upgrade your PostgreSQL flexible servers with TimescaleDB enabled. Okay, so first, this is an online process differently from what is currently supported with the major version upgrades in flexible servers. There are some limitations, so should you need to upgrade your flexible servers with TimescaleDB, you have to drop the extension, disable the extension, then you do the upgrade and then you re-enable it. That's not satisfactory for some of the customers because they have large databases, they cannot afford the downtime. So this is a view of what our online process could look like. Things to watch for. This process actually covers the PostgreSQL upgrade. Okay, I'm not upgrading the TimescaleDB extension, which means in this particular scenario they are in the same versions. So as you can see in the diagram, it's Postgres 14 with TimescaleDB 2.15.3, and I'm moving it to Postgres 16 with TimescaleDB 2.15.3. So this is not going to be an in-place immersion version upgrade. As I mentioned, you can do that offline. This is an online approach, and this has been solution proved to help many customers. So I will need a source and a target with TimescaleDB enabled, and I need an Azure VM. The process relies heavily on logical replication and pg dump and pg restore. The logical replication aspect, as you probably suspected if you are familiar with Postgres, is to keep the change data capture, so the online synchronization ongoing while things are happening in the background. And I put here this table around what versions this process do actually support. But honestly, this is just a translation of this documentation here on flexible servers. So I told you the prerequisites that the TimescaleDB has to be the same version. Okay, so let's say you are in the latest version in all of your Postgres build. So Postgres version and extension version for TimescaleDB is in the Azure documentation. So this process works from 12 to 13, as well as 14 to 15, 14 to 16, and 15 to 16. Uh, does it work, Paula? Does it work from 13 to 14? No. We are going to have I'm going to post another video that covers how do you do it from 13 to 14. Okay, always aligning whatever methodology with the recommendation and the documentation available for TimescaleDB. That's very important too. Okay, now let's switch into the doing aspect of this video. Okay, so here I have Postgres 14. I'm gonna prove it to you because seeing is believing. I have Postgres 14. Oops, sorry. Postgres 14, 17 in this case, doesn't matter, the minor version of Postgres. And I have Postgres 16. So I will show you the hyper table. If you're familiar, hopefully with TimescaleDB, you have hyper tables created. Oh, I'm doing this. You see in the target, I do not have the table created. That's expected. And on the source, I not only have my hyper table, but I have one miserable record here created that we intend to move into this target. Okay. So I have this document here. I will start by covering the prerequisites very quickly. So we have 11 steps, okay? So the prerequisites are, first, I need to have some certain privileges on the roles that I'm using both on the source and on the target. So these are the prerequisites. You have to make sure you have this in place. This is requirement for the logical replication mostly, otherwise it doesn't work. You have to have enabled TimescaleDB on the target, okay, prior to the migration. And for the source and target servers, again, because I'm using logical replication, you need to enable wall level to logical. There are some other parameters that you have to enable. I recommend you to do this on both source and target. And because at the end of the day, if you want to set up bidirectional replication from the target to the source in case you need a reliable fallback mechanism, you can do that too. But regardless of doing that setup, I need you to do this in both source and target in order to make it work. Other things that we have to check for a primary key or a unique key, or you need to enable replica identity in all the tables that are included in this upgrade or in this process. Okay, this is a prerequisite for logical replication. Okay, so first we're gonna take a picture of the database, if you will. So that's gonna be when I create the replication slot. So we get an LSN and we know where we are. Then we're gonna copy the data using pgdump and pgrestore into the target. This is an offline copy. We're gonna do that. Later, we're gonna enable the subscription on the target, and then we're gonna see if everything is working and replicating as we need. Okay? Cool. So on the source, step number 4, you come here and you run these commands to create the publication. I'm not gonna enter onto details of publications and replication slots. I'm assuming you're familiar with these concepts in Postgres. However, if you have any questions, just please leave me a comment. I can try to help you. Now I'm gonna go to step number 5, which execute on my VM, which has Postgres installed because I'm relying on logical on pgdump and restore for this. By doing this, I am actually taking a picture and I'm exporting whatever data I have already on database, which means whatever records are being included right now, I'm already not including in this dump. That's why we need the logical replication. So following with the TimescaleDB documentation, we need to run this in the target prior to restoring the data. So you come here on your target. Sorry, I do not mean to erase this. On the target, you run the pre-restore. Now you're gonna restore. Okay, restore the information. I am doing this process for the entire database. Okay. In the meantime, okay, it's done. There will be some errors around extensions and other things that are available in flexible servers. You can say it's safe to ignore them. Just check for the tables that you care in this process. And in this case, I will check the table conditions in a second. So following the manufacturer's documentation, TimescaleDB recommends that we run this command after you restore the data. And then let me go check for the conditions table. Right, it has one record, the table is here, we're good. However, let's spice this up because I promised you an online approach. In this case, I'm going to insert some records on the source again. And my expectation is that I'll have 4 records on the source and 1 record on the target. Why? Well, that's because records keep coming into the source and they are not getting replicated into the target just yet. My PG dump did not carry them over because they started, a few moments ago. And okay, 4 records here, 3 records, 1 record on the target. Okay, cool. So now how do we do the magic of enabling the replication and kind of make sure that source and target are in the same page? So they are caught up and they are synchronized. I think that's a better word. So for this, I will create the subscription. There are some parameters I'm using here. It has to be identical to what I'm doing here because I don't want to copy the data again from source to target, and I do not want to create a slot. Very important. And I don't want to enable the subscription just yet. Why? Because I need to advance the origin. Okay, so I need to tell Postgres, can you please skip whatever records I already copied, and just please, when I enable the subscription, bring it over the data that got, let's say, included in this time frame. So I really don't want you to copy everything over. Just give me the delta. So for that, we do an advancement of the replication origin. These are the queries. One is in the source, one is in the target. You have to run these commands. It will be all in the document that I shared with this video. So this is the actual thing. You come and you replace with the actual restart LSN and the replication origin identifier. You press the button. Cool. I advanced. So now when I enable the subscription, which is the last step here, step number 10, I expect my table in a few seconds, my conditions table, to have exactly the same records that I got from the source. So it should be 4 records now instead of only 3. Sorry, only 1. Okay, so let's query the table. Okay, and as you can see, 4 records in the source, 4 records in the target. Let's include one more record. So, okay, finally I was able to cut up with the source. Now let me make sure that I have whatever records I include in the source gets replicated to the target, because if you're doing this in a real prod environment, you might need to test some things and make some configurations and other things that you have to do before you actually switch to the new target. So then you can keep this replication ongoing between source and target for as long as you want. Cool. Now, how do I make, well, before I go into how do I make the switch? Remember, when you're using TimescaleDB, the concept of hypertables is that it creates automatically some chunks as the data comes into the database as well. You have to watch out for this because chunks that get created in the source will not be on the target. So some inserts might not get synchronized and might even fail. I will I will post a short video on how you do that. Let's say your migration takes a long time to actually fully finish. I'll post a short video on how you actually do this optional part in case more chunks got created and you don't have a means to move them over because logical replication will not replicate the data and because you already did a dump of the database. So, but continue with the happy path. Okay, synchronization is working, everything's fine. I'm ready to switch my application to this new PostgreSQL database. So let me disable the subscription because now no new records are getting included into the source, and this is going to be my new database. So for that, let me include now a record directly on the target to prove that our process actually works. And this is actually a hypertable. So let me do maybe the 13th. For those watching Texas, why not? And there you go. Okay, no errors. And voila, we have a fully functional new PostgreSQL with TimescaleDB working as a target and as a new database. People might ask me, how do I keep the names? Like my recommendation is to use something called virtual endpoints. So configure virtual endpoints on the original source that you had, and make sure that you configure the same endpoint, virtual endpoint, into this new target. By the time you need to make the switch, you're not gonna have to deal with new names or anything like that. Things to watch for: size of the replication slots, right? So we have to monitor that because while you're doing the dump and the subscription is still not enabled, so there is nobody consuming whatever is in the replication slots and the walls. So we need to make sure that the wall is gonna grow. You need to make sure you monitor it, otherwise you could have a storage problem on the source. Obviously, parallelism for the dump and the restore process. This is actually very recommended. And the last thing to discuss, like, why did you not do this? Use just logical replication for this, because it doesn't work with hypertables. Okay, so if you try to create on the source and on the target, the hypertable is not going to be recognized because you have to do that pre-restore and post-restore in order to actually the TimescaleDB extension recognize that object as an actual hypertable. So you kind of have to rely on pgdump and restore, cannot be only logical replication. Okay, this closes the video. I hope you liked. Please include your comments, and yep, I hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye.